This video will test the functionality of an email validator. Email addresses have many standards which can all be found in the RFC documents. However, if every email abided by these standards, it would be difficult for users to understand how to create a valid email address. Because of this email validator encompasses many of the key standards of an email. The first standard that needs to be tested is whether or not the email has a local and a domain. So to separate these, you need an @ sign in between. So if we test this in the email validator, you can see it says a valid email as we have the @ sign here, separating the local and the domain. The next test that needs to be done is ensuring there's only one @ So as you see, it's invalid because there's two @ because we only can have a local and a domain. We can't have any more than this. Although we have to have one @ symbol, we can't actually have this in any place, as we do have to separate the local and the domain. So if it's at the end here, it should be invalid, as we've only got a local variable here. If we move on to the rules of the local part, so the first rule is that it has to have at least one character. So if we were to put this email address in, it would be invalid, as we haven't actually got a local part on here, only the domain. In contrast to this point, we also can't have over 64 characters. So this here is too long. So it should come out as invalid. As you see, it's invalid again. So in the local part, we can include dots in the address, and this creates a label. So this is completely valid with the dot in between the two names, and Ben and Claudia are separate labels. We can't have an empty label, so if we were to have two dots in a row, this would be invalid. So we can't have an empty label within these two dots here, so this would come out as invalid. We can also not have dots at the start or the end of the local part. So again, this is invalid. Again, it's because one side of is going to be an empty label. If we move on to the standards of the domain part, so the first rule is that the total number of characters cannot be more than 253. So this email address is much longer than 253 characters. So if I was to enter it in, it would be invalid. The next thing that needs to be tested is that the domain can have dots within it to create labels. So this makes this email here valid. Similarly to the local part, you can't have two consecutive dots. So again, the email is incorrect. And similarly again, the dot cannot be at the beginning or the end. The final standard that was implemented in this program was that characters A to Z lowercase, A to Z uppercase, 0 to 9, and these characters here are all able to be put into the email address. And that is the email validator.